Hi, I'm Tony, your Pop-Pop's Workshop. Now, as I watch a lot of other YouTube videos, I look at their shops and I think, man, I need this tool, I need this tool, I need this tool. But what if I had to start over? What if a friend said, hey, I want to get into woodworking. What do you recommend? Well, I've got a list that would probably cost somebody $20,000 to start woodworking. But nobody's going to do that because you don't know if you're going to like it, right? So instead of doing 5 tools, because we've seen a lot of those videos, and I can't pick out just 5 tools I would recommend because there's so many. But I can do 5 categories or 5 things to start over with. So, what things do you need? What 5 areas do you need to pick out some tools in to start over? Okay, so area thing number one, right? PPE. Now, I know some people start off with drills or saws or whatever. But listen, if you're going to start woodworking, the first thing you need to think about is protecting yourself. Whether it's the basics of just some simple safety glasses, some foam earplugs, and a quickie mask, or maybe you upgrade to a more comfortable mask. You have some ear covers, ear muffs. But for me, I grabbed one of these right away because just having one eye, I need to protect it. So this is going to be great for maybe I want to work on a lathe someday or I'm doing something that throws a lot of chips. I'm going to put this on to help aid the safety glasses I'm already wearing. And I upgraded not too early or not too late into the woodworking career of mine into the isotunes. They're great. It allows me to listen to podcasts when I'm doing everyone's favorite job of sanding. Mind numbing. I can at least get some good podcasts going in my ears. So PPE is important. I picked up one of these awesome Cat's Moses work aprons so I can keep a lot of the tools handy that I'm working on because we all know if you set something down in the workshop, it disappears in an instant. So, area number one, you want to start off with PPE. All right. So, thing number two that we want, and we're starting over in the wood shop or we're starting up in the wood shop, saws. You've got to have some way to cut the wood that you're going to be bringing in or using. Whether that wood is all surface 4 sides or if it's rough, it doesn't matter. You're going to need saws to cut it. So it could be something as simple as a circular saw, corded or battery operated, whatever you want to go with there. This is a flush trim saw for cutting out dowels and things like that. Maybe you're old school and you got to use, which I don't, you can tell by the rust, a hand saw. So for those guys that like hand woodworking, I apologize for my saw. Maybe it's a jigsaw for cutting circles early on. And I'd prefer that to be a barrel grip, but sometimes you just got to make do with what you got. Over here we've got our miter saw. Now, miter saws can be a source of contention. Some guys think, I don't need a miter saw in my shop. I can do it all with other saws. And maybe you can, but miter saws can be picked up inexpensively, and sometimes it's a great tool to have in the shop when you're breaking things down. And remember, this is just a suggestion as to what kind of saw you might need. Maybe you have one already, and in that case, you want to use it. And we've got the standby table saw, and these come in a variety of sizes and costs, and whatever you can think of with a table saw, it's probably going to cost you that if you can afford it. So that's another thing to have. And the last saw I'm going to talk about in our shop is the handy dandy bandsaw, which is great for resawing lumber, cutting curves, and you can change out the blade size for doing a lot of things with a bandsaw. So that's going to be another handy thing. So again, saws are absolute a necessity in the shop, whether you're starting off or you're growing your business. Pick out the saws you want and grow with them over time. All right, third thing for starting over or starting up, sanding. You cut the wood, when you're ready to finish everything, you've got to sand it. I'm sorry, I don't like it either. That's what's got to happen. So there's a variety of ways to do that. You can hand sand. If you're going to go the hand route and do some hand sanding, one of these little sanding mice is great. You can just take your standard little 5-inch disc and wrap it on there, and you're good to go. Some hand sanding. You got a little flat edge over here you can work. Lots of things, lots of ways to use that with. Belt sander, if you're needing to flatten some large areas and remove some material aggressively, belt sander is going to be your best friend early on. Here's a random orbit sander that we chose, and here's a word. I chose a corded random orbit sander. I've used the battery operated one, but unless you're just doing a little bit, I find I burn through batteries way too fast, and sanding is tedious enough without having to pull a battery here or there. Others may love them, and don't get me wrong, maybe yours is better than the one I had, but ran out and grabbed this Metabo corded sander, and it has treated us very well. It does a great job in combination with our 3M Cubitron 2 extract paper. This stuff is great. Get it. Taylor Tool Works. Call them up. Get some of this stuff. Can't recommend it highly enough. And a recent addition, we've had this in the shop long enough for me to sing its glorious praises, this Triton combination belt and spindle sander. Man, this thing's wonderful. I got an 80 grit belt on there, and it will remove some material. The table will drop down in different degrees, all the way down to 45 for sanding bevels, if that's what you want to need. If you're going to need to do that, it's wonderful. This is a tool that I needed to get in the shop. We recently were able to set aside the money and put it in the shop, and I have not regretted that purchase one bit. So if you are in the market, I did a video as to why I chose the Triton over other models that they all kind of look the same. There's a reason I chose the Triton, and I don't regret that decision a bit. Also, it's a little sanding eraser thing, just a little rubberized bit that helps clean the belts and the paper. This is going to make your paper and your belts work for you a lot longer. So grab yourself one of these. Sometimes they're in big sticks. If they are, I suggest gluing them to a paint stick, paint stirrer stick, because that's going to give you a little bit more control, going to make it a little safer for you. So sanding, maybe not your favorite thing, but you can learn to enjoy it if you got the right stuff to do it with. Fourth thing for startup or starting over is fastening. Now, in the fastening category, it can go from things like glue, whether it be CA glue for temporary quick tack down, or things like this Quick and Thick from Titebond, or our favorite in the shop for many reasons, Titebond 3, because it's waterproof. So when we're doing outdoor projects, we know the glue is going to stand up over time. Fasteners, we want to screw things together. We've had a great deal of success with the GRK and the Power Pro fasteners. They're always used in the shop. And of course, our favorite new tools for drilling and fastening are our Makita subcompacts. They're great. I'm sorry, you have to, right? I mean, if you're a guy and you pick up a power tool or drill, you're going to pull the trigger. Okay, so the other thing with that is we have been enjoying this Crescent Vortex bit. The benefit to that is it's got an internal cam in there, clutch, that if you're driving something and it resists, instead of snapping the screw, that clutch is going to cut out. And so it's going to stop driving. It's like a built-in clutch that you would have on your drill when you set it low. It's just going to rotate without snapping that screw head. So that's been really critical. I haven't snapped a screw yet using that. And when you think about driving and countersinking, this Amana countersink drill bit is amazing. This little collar, we'll just do it right in the top here. Why not? So this collar will stop when it comes in contact, won't let it go any deeper, but it also won't scar or mark the surface. That's what, scuff the surface. So that's a handy tool to have. Also, air nailers. Now, I know a lot of guys will, on their battery platform, will get a battery-powered fastener. They're great. They're wonderful. I've got one in an older battery line. I love them. But I picked this up. It's like an ad on Harbor Freight. When you bought certain things, you got like, this was $5, I think, is what we paid for this. And it's a stapler or brad nailer. So I can use either or in there. But I can't use it with is a battery. I need over here a compressor. So we've got a little Central Pneumatic. This was an anniversary gift 1 year from my lovely wife. She bought me a compressor. Around that time, I was using it mainly to blow out the shop, air up tires, and things like that. But since I had it, I was able to get a quick pneumatic little fastener and use that to pin nail things together until such time as my battery platform expands in the Makita line and I get a fancy little battery-powered nailer that way. But when we think about the compressor, anytime you can get one tool that can do multiple things, especially in a small shop, or especially when you're starting out or starting over, that tool is worth more than many others. So that compressor is more than earned its keep in the shop. Yeah, it's loud, but again, I got my ISOtunes. I'm good. So a compressor is probably something you want to think about when you're starting out. There's lots of very inexpensive, oilless, quiet compressors now that you can pick up at Harbor Freight or many other places. So think about a compressor. And one of the other things that kind of fits in this category for fastening is sometimes you want to drill a hole in something. So you can do that with your drill, or I can fit that same countersink bit into my little drill press that I picked up off Facebook Marketplace. Great place if you're starting out or starting over. Facebook Marketplace has some great tool deals. It's not a big one, but it does everything I need it to in the shop at this moment. So another thing you might want to think about in the shop. Again, you're not going to get all these things all at one time. You're going to build that over time, but there's some things like a set of drills and a driver you're really going to want. Maybe a fastener if you're building some small furniture projects to start with. And definitely you're going to need the glues and screws. So those are the things in category number 4. Our 5th thing is measuring. If you're in the shop, before you can cut anything or do anything else, you put on your PPE and you pick up a measuring device. Probably a tape measure. Now, a lot of guys are going to have a 25-foot tape measure laying around. And I started using that in the shop because that's what I had. But it's just too much tape. It really is, honestly. For most of what we're doing, this might even be too much. It's a little 16-foot lever lock. Probably eventually pick up a 12. A 12-foot tape is more than enough. And you're going to need more than one because inevitably it's going to grow legs and disappear the minute you set it down. So if you have one at maybe different stations in the shop eventually, that's going to be a handy thing to do. So a good tape measure is a must to start off. Square, this is a double square I just recently got, but you'll want a nice square to do that. A lot of guys, again, are going to start off, they're probably going to have a little Swanson speed square like this one, maybe a metal one. This is a plastic one, very durable. They're great for starting off. Later on, you might want something a little different, a little more geared towards woodworking, but this is fine to start with. And for those angles that you just can't figure out, you don't got to do anything complicated like math. You can just simply slap on a bevel gauge, put that on there, find your angle, then you can set your saw to whatever that angle is, and you're good to go. A nice framing square is a good thing to pick up when you've got a chance. Again, a lot of guys may have one of these in the shop already, so some of these measuring things are a gimme. A nice little straight edge like this is from Capro. They have a side on here that has a 0 and goes out, so if you need to find center on something, a tool like this is kind of handy to have. And then a couple nice straight edges. Simple one, a smaller one here, and a larger, a little thicker one. They can be very useful in the shop for long lines and making those marks accurate for you. So those are some of the simple measuring tools that you may already have many of, and maybe a couple you want to add when you're starting over or starting up. All right, I know I said 5 things, but there's a 6th category that we want to talk about, and that's battery platform. When I started off, another gift from my lovely wife was a set of Porter Cable cordless tools, and they've been great for starting off, but it's harder and harder to find that line of tools. So I thought, you know what, I want to switch over to Makita eventually. And in the meantime, I found myself in need of a decent trim router. something simple to use. And of course, Ryobi was inexpensive. It was like $70 for just the router. But that meant I would have to use the batteries. And I'm like, I didn't want to buy the batteries. That's another platform, and I don't want to go into the Ryobi platform. I want to go into the Makita platform. So what I found is that online you can find an adapter that simply goes in there, and now my Ryobi platform will work off of my Porter cable batteries. So these aren't wasted batteries. Even if I switch tools, these batteries will still power until I get something different, this router. So it makes it even more handy. And I can eventually get one of these adapters for my Makita line that will take the Porter cable batteries and work in the Makita. So I have some extra batteries. And who doesn't like extra batteries? So that's something to think about. You might think to yourself, oh, I already got a kit. I'm trapped in that battery platform. No, you're not. That adapter online, you can change just about any battery platform to work in any other tool line. Just take a look online, do a little Google search, go on Amazon. That's where I found mine. And you should be able to then use your old batteries from your old battery platform in whatever new platform you want to go into. So that's your bonus thing to start up or start over. All right, so there you go. 5 things that you may want to think about if you're going to start up or start over, along with our bonus. So when you think about all these things, it doesn't matter how much money you have to start with. Pick a couple inexpensive tools to start with. The biggest thing when starting up or starting over is to just get started. So hopefully you've enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching. And remember, you can do this.